So last week, I talked about the power of zeal. I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm and spring forth with the mighty faith to do the things that ought to be done by me. And this week, I'm going the opposite end of the spectrum, and I'm talking about silence. So it's an interesting thing to navigate from zeal to silence. But as we talked about last week, zeal is one of our 12 powers, and Charles Fillmore aligned each of the disciples with one of the powers, and they have a placement in our body. And those powers are life, imagination, power, judgment or discernment, understanding, zeal, elimination, faith, love, order, and will. And that what we talked about last week was that we really reach the depth of our zeal as we go within. And so it's not always that zeal is this whoa out here. It's the recognition that we go into that wellspring within ourselves, and then it shows up in our lives in different ways. So I've also been doing intermittent talks on prayer, and the last talk that I did on prayer was how to pray for others, and we talked, of course, how to pray for ourselves. In Unity, we use affirmative prayer, and so the question today becomes, okay, now I've done the prayer work, now what? Well, the fourth basic principle of Unity is we believe in the power of prayer and meditation. And so I'm going to share with you a couple of scriptures. First, from Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, trust in the Lord with all thy heart and lean not on thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct thy paths. We're moving into that place of really trusting God, getting out of the how, and allowing and knowing that our steps are going to go out before us. The other scripture is Job 22:28. Thou shalt also decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee, and the light shall shine upon thy ways. So the light is always going to be there to guide us when we are willing to step back and trust. Now here's the thing, the light is always there. It's just we don't always see it because we're pretty busy in our own lives trying to manipulate things and make things happen or not trusting or doubting or things like that. But when we really move into the meditative aspect of prayer and meditation, that is a time that we truly can let go, and we will know our next steps. So we've prayed, and praying, we talk a lot about that we are co-creators, and our part in the co-creation process with affirmative prayer is that we're changing our thoughts, and we're focusing on what it is that we really desire to experience in our life, and what it is that we desire for the world, really shifting our thoughts, on that. So our co-part is a dominion over our thoughts, and then it's time to turn it over to God and to let this divine intelligence do what only the divine intelligence can do. Here's the thing, though, is we do affirmative prayer and we move into this place of letting go, but so many times we start taking it back, don't we? And we take it back by not being patient in the process. We take it back by becoming fearful or doubting, by worrying. That's the way that we take it back. And I love the idea that if we had a really precious quilt that maybe had been handed down to us from generations, or let's just say that the pieces of the quilt were handed down from generations, and the idea is someday somebody's going to put this quilt together. So you want for this quilt to be put together, so you take it to the master quilt maker, but you're kind of worried that what if the master quilt maker messes it up? And so you think, I better keep a few pieces of this quilt so that no matter what happens, I've still got some of this precious quilt. Well, by holding those pieces back, the master quilt maker can't complete the quilt. And it's the same with our divine intelligence. When we keep taking things back and we keep holding on to them because we, think we know the timing and we know what the next step should be, then the master intelligence of the creator of everything, you're not giving that the space that is needed to create a masterpiece in your life. And I know that if not all of us, most of us have experienced in our lives when we know that it's been this beautiful movement of God, of spirit, of source, of the divine, and has created an incredible masterpiece in our lives, right? Yeah, probably many, many times. So one of the things that helps me when I'm in that place where I'm really ready to give it over, but I'm also kind of fearful, not really totally trusting, is just help me in my unbelief. There's a beautiful story in the Bible about that, and at the end, the Father says, help me, I do believe, but help me in my unbelief. And so just opening ourselves up to that and say, help me in my unbelief. I'm willing to give this over, just help me in my unbelief. And of course, this is getting out of the how. So this is one aspect of moving into meditation, is that the letting go and letting God and truly getting out of the how. Get out of the how, get out of the how, get out of the how. Because when we do that, obviously we're not in the way then. And again, amazing things they're always ready to pop up, but you'll be able to see those things. So another aspect of meditation is moving into the silence. And so I do want to tell you that I'm going to do the meditation at the end of the talk today, and we are going to spend about 4 minutes in the silence. And I wanted to tell you that ahead of time so you wouldn't think like, oh my gosh, she's forgotten about us. But it's such an interesting thing to have that time in the silence. So Charles Fillmore, from the Revealing Word, says the fundamental purpose of meditation is to establish a conscious communion with God, a oneness with God. And every one of us can participate in meditation. Every single one of us can do that. So here's the thing about when we enter into meditation, enter into the silence, kind of the way I see it is that, my thinking mind is always going. Anybody else's thinking mind? Always going, always going. And then we've got this thing called the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is always going too, only our conscious mind isn't always necessarily knowing what our subconscious mind is doing. But our life will tell us what our subconscious mind is doing. When we move into the silence and we just let go, what happens is all of it lines up with a superconscious mind. And this is where we want to come from anyway, all the time in our lives. We talk about God first, go to God first, go to God first. It's simply a matter of clearing the way, if you will, of moving out of the activity of the subconscious and the conscious mind and allowing ourselves just to be in the vastness of the superconscious mind. And of course, superconscious mind we call God. There was a really great reading in the Science of Mind magazine. This was from years ago, and it's called Apple Juice. And it's a story about Thich Nhat Hanh. So he had this 5-year-old niece, and she had been outside playing, and she came in, and she was really thirsty. She was exhausted. And so Han gave her a glass of freshly squeezed apple juice, and there were still little bits of apple in the glass. And so he handed it to her, and she goes, no, Uncle, that is dirty. And he said, honey, it's not dirty. I just squeezed it just now. It's fresh apple juice. And she said, no, it's dirty. So he kind of shrugged his shoulders, and he went back up to his meditation loft. And after about 30 minutes, he came back down, and she met him with this smile. And she said, Uncle, come, you must see. The apple juice is now clean. And so he went and he looked, and, it was clearer. And he explained to her that it's not that the apple juice was any cleaner than it was before. It's that it had time to be still, and the sediment fell to the bottom of the glass. And so she said to him, is that why you meditate, Uncle? So you can clear like apple juice? And he simply smiled at her. And I love that. I love that visual. I love that analogy, because the reality is that our minds are just filled with so much. It's like life is so busy, isn't it? It's so full. We have so much to do, many places to be. We have things coming at us all the time, whether it's TV or Facebook or people on the street, and whoa, we're just bombarded. And then we have judgments, and we have fears, and we have all these kinds of things going on. And I love that analogy and that visual, that when we become still, when we stop and we enter into the silence, that all falls to the bottom. And then that clarity that shows up for us, that is our experience of our connection with the superconscious mind, with God, with Holy Spirit. Now, some of you will remember Reverend Paulette Pipe. She actually spoke here a number of years ago, and I found the picture of her right here on our stage. Reverend Paulette she does a program on unity.fm called Touching the Stillness. And I'm going to plug unity.fm again. Unity.fm is a wonderful radio program that is filled with so many programs on your computer, or you can get to it on your, whatever your device is. It's all Unity based, and things are on there like the Course in Miracles, recovery, Bible things. I think there's the Essential Charles Fillmore. There's just world religions. There's so many things. And the really cool thing about Unity.fm is you can go to any program and they have archives. And so there's literally thousands of hours of things that when you need a lift or you want to figure something out, go to Unity.fm. So here's Reverend Paulette Pipe, and she does this program called Touching the Stillness. And this is all about meditation. And I really want to get her back here soon, because just her essence, just her beingness is just like this total peace. And you feel it from her when you're in her presence. When she gets up on stage, you just kind of go, that feels so good, because that's what she's about. So Reverend Paulette said, how do we find silence with so much noise around us? We have the whirring of a washing machine, the swishing of a dishwasher, the zurring of a lawnmower, music in the elevator, blaring speakers in a mall, the constant ringing, the incessant ringing of our cell phones, background TV sounds, barking dogs, emergency systems. And it's interesting, because even though it's in a good way, even nature is loud. When I go out to meditate on my deck, whatever time of day it is, I'm hearing all kinds of, little bird songs or dogs barking or whatever. So she says, surely there is a place where we can find the silence. But interestingly enough, and this is okay, and I want us to know that this is okay, for many of us, that place of silence is very uncomfortable. And so we either find ways to escape the silence, or we make excuses why we don't meditate on a regular basis, because the silence can be kind of uncomfortable, can't it? Because we kind of feel like, are we doing it right? Because my mind is still going. And did anything happen in that silence? Was it even something that was worthwhile? And I'm going to say, yes, it absolutely is. Joel Goldsmith, in his book, The Thunder of Silence, says, the silence is not an absence of sound, but it is a state of consciousness which refrains us from making mental reaction to that which is sound or heard. This is really big for us to get. And it's really an amazing thing to be able to find your way to the silence no matter what is going on around you. Because the more you practice it, no matter where you are, you will be able to go to that place and you won't even hear what's going on around you, because you'll be so attuned to that silence. Now, Joe, if you'll come up a minute. So Pema Chodron, who is a wonderful, wonderful author also, she talks about a couple things. One is that we can practice the silence numerous times in the day. And so one of the things would be, and I like this idea, if you have a phone that you can set an alarm on, and so every 2 hours or something comes up, and it just reminds you to stop and take 3 deep breaths. Just 3 deep breaths, and just take you into that space. But she also talks about minding the gaps. That if you have a piece of music, it's important that you mind the gaps, that you mind the rests, and so she gave this idea, and I asked Joe this morning, "Could you do this?" And he said yes. So Joe is going to play a song for you with no rests, and then he's going to follow it up, the song with the rests. You go ahead. Thank you, Joe. So, could you hear the difference? Could you feel the difference? And I love that as I want to say a visual, but it's really an audible thing, that it reminds us everything takes rests. Everything does in nature. You know, we have the seasons and the animals. Everything takes rest, except for us. Because we're human beings, and we've got busy schedules, and we have a lot of things to do, so we're not going to take those rests. And sleeping doesn't count. It doesn't count, because it's not the same as going to that place where you know that this is specifically for me to let go and to let God and to allow myself just to be in that space. So how do we meditate? Well, there's no one right way. I want to tell you that. There's teachers that are going to tell you that you have to sit in the lotus position, that you have to have, your hands on your knees and be in the Om. And there's teachers that tell you that you need to have your eyes open. No, you got to have your eyes closed. You need to face east or west. There's all kinds of ideas on what is the right way to do meditation. So I want to tell you that whatever it is that works for you, that's the right way. That's the right way for you. So, the main thing first is to just stop and breathe. And we're going to do some 3 deep breaths as we go into meditation today. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to really fill up your belly. Feel it filling up. And then when you breathe out, feel your belly coming back in. Wonderful way to just start. For some of you, it'll be a specific time apart. You will have a time every day that is your meditation time, and that's awesome if you can do that. For some, it's going to be something like painting or walking or gardening, anything that can take you out of that conscious thinking mind. And I know for myself, when I'm doing certain things, all of a sudden I'm in that no place because I'm just in the moment, and I love those moments. So for some of us, it's going to be that. For some, it's going to be maybe an open eye meditation where you're going to focus maybe on the flame of a candle, or you'll have an object that you're going to focus on. And guided meditations are wonderful. If you go to Paulette Pipe, she does a little bit of a talk in the beginning, and then she takes you through a guided meditation. I love guided meditations. And I will tell you, one of the things that I love in a guided meditation is to go through my body and just check in and tell my body to relax. That gets me there probably faster than anything. So, and Reverend Paulette said that, in finding the stillness, how do I know that I've arrived? And I loved her answer to this, because what she is saying is that, and maybe you will relate to this, but I know for myself that when I go into that place and and I'm there, and all of a sudden I realize I'm there, and I'm like, I'm there. Oh, I'm not there anymore. But I was there, and I felt it, and I could feel it, and it was just this, I don't even know how to explain it. So it wasn't like some big, whoa, spiritual experience. It was more that there was just an alignment. There was something that I knew that all of a sudden I was out of my mind until I came back into my mind. But the more that you practice that, the more that's going to happen for you. And even the great masters, it was not easy for them to that place. So don't beat yourself up. But those moments, even if it's a nanosecond, what I love is she said, God is not limited by time. If you can get to that place and you can be in that place for 5, 10, 20 minutes, that's amazing. But you may get there for 30 seconds. Or you may get there for 2 minutes or whatever. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that in those moments, this stuff, thinking and subconscious mind, give way for superconscious mind, for God, for the divine. And just that will make a huge difference in your life. Charles Fillmore, he decided that he needed to go to headquarters. He was going to go to headquarters himself, and he was going to find out for himself what the truths were. And so he took time every single day to go into the silence, and he would go in for quite a while. And for months, it seemed like nothing was happening until he started recognizing that he was having very prophetic dreams. And these dreams were really guiding him. And so behind those closed eyes, where sometimes it doesn't feel like anything is happening, I assure you, so much is happening. Because the moment that we create that space and we just open ourselves up, the allness, the totality of this intelligence can flow through us. It's just that we tend to be so in our heads that we don't even give it that opportunity to flow through us. And it's amazing, like how many things. Now I'm going to tell you this too, that you may not have, you may not get an answer or an idea when you're in the silence, and that's okay. Sometimes I'll go in and I'll have a specific something, and many times I'll come out and it's like, oh, it's so clear to me. Many times I have no clarity in those moments, but the clarity always comes. It always comes. And I got to say this because it can show up in like little ways in our lives. Last night, we had our board fun night at my house, and I have an above ground pool, and I really wanted to get the volleyball net across the pool. But I, for a couple of weeks, been thinking, how am I going to do this? Because the thing I did last year didn't work, and I'm going to have to go get some long poles, but how am I going to put those in? And Paul just didn't have time to do it. So I just kind of stayed in the question. But this weekend I did a lot with meditation because I'm talking about this. So yesterday morning, it's hot, right? It's hot. And I was doing some things outside. I jumped in the pool, laid back on a raft, and I looked, and all of a sudden, it always has been there, I saw the corner of my deck. And I thought, oh, I could attach the volleyball net to there. And then I thought, I just need to figure out the other side. And as I turned around and looked, I have a wrought iron, like bird feeder hook kind of thing, right on the other side of the pole, directly opposite. And it was like, oh, I can just hook it to that. And it was like one of those moments where I knew it was because I just let myself pause, that all of a sudden it was just there, and it was easy. It was easy. I didn't have to do anything. But I sincerely believe I wouldn't have seen that because I didn't see it before that. If I hadn't, and it wasn't that I went in and said, oh God, please show me how to put this volleyball net up. It wasn't even that, but it's like when we create those gaps, all stuff flows into us, and you'll have ideas that come to you that you're like, oh my gosh, I thought about that a month ago, and oh yay. So there's just incredible value in going into the silence. So we're going to do a little practice with this. And so I'm going to invite you to just get comfortable in your chair. And you can close your eyes. And I'm going to invite us to take 3 deep breaths. Again, we're going to take a deep breath down into our belly, let our belly come out. Then we're going to exhale, really pulling that back in. So take 3. And now I'm going to invite us to check in with our bodies. Let your eyes relax, your cheeks and your jaws, your mouth, your tongue. Feel your neck relaxing and your shoulders, your arms and your hands and your fingers. Feel your heart slowing down and resting. Feel your stomach releasing, your glutes, your thighs, your knees, your calves, your ankles, and your feet. And just becoming an open vessel. And as we move into the silence, just let yourself be. And if thoughts come up, just gently let them go in the silence. and so it is. How'd that feel? That feel good? Yeah. I mean, we all can do that, and we can do it numerous times. And, sometimes I like to maybe set a timer. So I don't even have to think about, I'm just going to set a timer. And I had somebody after the first service say that he meditates regularly and he sets the timer. And when the timer goes off, he's like, no, I want to stay here. And I love that. I do want to tell you that we have some opportunities for meditation. One is we have a huge labyrinth back at the back of the parking lot here behind the house. That is a wonderful tool. Maybe in cooler weather, but to really go into the silence. But we also have a period of meditation in here between services, between the first and the second service until 10:45. So if you want to get here a little early, you can come in and be in the sanctuary. And we also have a meditation every Sunday night at 6 o'clock. So you have some options if you want to do that. So your homework for this week is, I'm going to tell you first, get out of your mind and just practice. I promise you, it will transform. It will transform your life. Namaste. Namaste. Namaste.